everyone, it's Terrence Branley with the Grow IT Podcast, and today I'm lucky to have Shannon Gregg, who is the president of Cloud Adoption Solutions, which is a Salesforce partner. And we're looking forward to learning more about what you guys are doing over there, Shannon. Welcome.
Great. Thanks for having me on. I'm so excited about it.
Cool. So tell us a little bit about your background and especially about your entrepreneurial journey. I'm always interested to learn about that as well.
You know, I spent a good deal of my life running sales operations teams for enterprise companies, which meant I was controlling nearly everything that the sales team needed to be effective and impactful, and working in the life sciences industry, which is very acquisitive. So I put together a punch list that said, hey, let's figure out how to get everything in order so that the day the event happens, we can get ready to put our feet on the street and start selling. And I found that that was something that Salesforce.com was very interested in. So they started asking me to speak at World Tour, Dreamforce. And every time I would do that, Terrence, people would stop and say, can you help my company do that same thing? So in 2018, I said, time for me to hold my nose and jump in the deep end and go ahead and start a business helping people with their sales operations and technology.
Join the group of crazies, those of us entrepreneurs that boy, we love self-torture.
You know, it's funny because my grandfather had been a security guard for Westinghouse, and he said, I think I could do this better. And his boss said, go ahead, do it better. My grandfather started his own company, ended up with tons and tons of security officers all around the East Coast, and ended up selling his company. My dad and his brother started their own company. So the day I called my dad and I said, Dad, that's it. I quit my job. I'm starting my own business. He said, I've been waiting for this call for years.
You know, it does run in the family. There's bloodlines that go to it. Even my boys, I have one in college and a younger one, and both of them have the entrepreneurial itch. And part of me is like, I hope you know what you're in for. Part of me is like, I'm proud. I'm like super stoked for them.
You're proud, you're scared, you're excited, you're nervous. It's all of the things at once.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about some your offering and what is it that what are the problems that you're solving for clients, right? And it may not always be problems; it could just be like, hey, what's that desired outcome that they're looking for, right? And kind of talk to me, walk me through a little bit about that process.
For sure. So we're mostly concerned with go-to-market technology. So marketing technology and sales technology, typically centered around a CRM like Salesforce. We do a lot of work with Salesforce.com. So helping companies to streamline their approach so that things are either integrated, iframed in, or living natively in Salesforce so that the end user, the person in marketing or sales, doesn't necessarily realize that they might be interacting with several applications at once, but allowing them to do more of what they do, which is find and then delight customers. So that's what we spend a lot of our time doing, is evaluating their process and their tech stack, looking for ways to be efficient with automation and allow their people to get out there and lower their quota.
Blow their quota away, maybe?
So, if they've got like this giant quota hanging over them, using that technology to let them chip away at that and, sort of retire whatever their target is faster, because the technology can do it, but a lot of companies has set it up so it gives reports to management, but it's really onerous for the salespeople because they're spending tons of time, working for their CRM instead of allowing the CRM to work for them.
Yeah, and it's probably a running theme, right? That all of a sudden what happens is supposed to be, the most effective tool for a salesperson to use ends up, the changes being driven by management, right? Who makes it, to your point, more onerous for the salesperson who it's supposed to be making life easier for in the first place.
Yes, tale as old as time, where, folks who are holding the budget buy the system, and the people who actually have to use it get to a point where they just start suppressing their usage. So they go back to keeping, pen and paper for their opportunity management, which flies in the face of what management was supposed to do in the first place. So it is a challenge.
So who are the types of, obviously if you're, doing a lot with Salesforce is an enterprise level, CRM, who are the types of clients that are, that you're working with, what types of industries, maybe across industries, and maybe, talk a little bit about some of the success stories, maybe across a couple of industries, if that's the case.
For sure. We spend all of our time in B2B. So we're looking at businesses that are selling to businesses because the commercial tech stack for B2C is wildly different, operates differently, sort of based on households, and the unique identifiers so different. So we are specialized in B2B. We've got a SaaS practice, a traditional sort of SaaS technology approach. I spend most of my time in our life sciences practice because that's where I came from, life sciences technology. So we've got folks who have really complex selling environments. Are they all enterprise level? Absolutely not. So we have some customers that have 5 Salesforce users, which is a pretty small shop when you think about it. But if they think a lot about their process and the way they use their technology, and they start to get their systems to work for them, they're now doing the work of 8 or 9 people because they've built in automation that works really well for them.
Can you give me an example of maybe like some of those automations that you're referring to, especially, for those of us that have all been in sales, we can probably, especially those of us that have operated within CRMs, our brains are kind of wired that way. So I'm curious to hear about some of those different types of automations that you guys have done.
Oh, for sure. So there's loads of things that you can do if you're using sales engagement tools like an Apollo or a Zoom Info, that you can have that come into your Salesforce instance or any other
And those are
CRM.
like databases of information where you can, learn and find more kind of contact information about prospects.
Yes, thank you so much for giving that. This is the curse of knowledge, right? Once you know something, you think everybody knows it. And you're exactly right. You've got a database that you're working from, whichever one it may be, and you can bring that information into your CRM platform and give it some rules. So you can say, based on these particular instances, I want this trigger to happen. So if this person comes in and they meet 8 of the 10 things that make a really ideal candidate for us that matches our unique selling proposition, these are the things I want to happen. And that may be setting up a task for you to call them, or sending them an initial email, or viewing their LinkedIn profile. And then once you've created an opportunity, you've converted from that sort of interest level or something that's in the marketing stage into something that's a little bit more like an opportunity stage. You can do the same thing. You can build automations that will create you tasks to say, we have to do a follow up call, or now we're actually going to create a proposal, and there will be automation that pulls that information out of your CRM into a proposal document. So anything that feels cut and pasty for a salesperson can be automated, which reduces the human effort and allows you to have more time to find and delight more customers.
Well, let's stay on this for a second. And why is that so important, right? I mean, the find and delight customers is good, and you've mentioned that a few times. Let's talk about it from the sales perspective. Like, what is it that you want your salespeople truly doing, right? Like, I mean, and frankly, and I'll be honest, and as someone who has hired a lot of salespeople, managed a lot of salespeople in my career, um, salespeople do not like to do admin work. They do not like to do repetitive things. They like to do the things that you hired them for in the first place, which is go out and find and delight customers, right?
That's right. And I think anytime you try to make a salesperson do a lot of administrative work, if they like it, they might not be your best salesperson, because salespeople are very kinetic. They like to be talking to people, solving problems, thinking deeply about the things that they're experts in, to help create an environment that's better for their customers. And so, generally, you're exactly right. When you hire a salesperson based on a profile that says, I know this person may fall into a category of hunter or farmer, either way, they're not the type of people that want to sit behind a desk and a laptop and enter a bunch of data. That's just not great for them. So, anything that you can do to give them more time for revenue generating activities, the better. That's the stuff they want to do anyhow.
100% agree. We had this conversation even internally. I had it with one of my operations people because she was complaining, right? As most people do about salespeople, because they think people just sit around and do nothing and fall into deals. But, she was basically complaining, that one of our salespeople was trying to get them to put in some automations on our backend system. And she was like, they can just do it this way. And I said, I know, but that takes time away from what they're good at, which is making more calls, right, finding more prospects, finding more clients, making the clients happy, right? And so that is really important to your point, right? Like, you want them out there doing revenue generating activities, not copy paste Where did I put this file? Where did I update this? How do I get this report over to whom?
Right. We don't ever want them to do that. It's just not in their best interest or ours.
How long does it typically take in terms of if you go in, and I know we're down this path, right? But like, maybe give us an example of one of your clients that you've gone in with that you've kind of looked at this. Like how do you go about your thought process or your methodology in terms of going in with a client or a prospect that you are going to help them with this in terms of before you put in an automation? Like maybe kind of walk me through your methodology.
Sure. So we do something that I think academically, or if you think about manufacturing, is known as a Gemba walk or value stream mapping, where we will say, tell us about your process as it exists today. And it's okay if it's not very well defined. It's okay if you just got funding and now you're going to hire 10 new salespeople, so it has to change. But we will outline their process, look at a sort of flow chart and say, where's the waste? So if I, as a salesperson, know that I can give a potential discount, but I have to have it approved. And that has to go to the CFO, and it's done via email. And then I have to send 7 reminder emails to the CFO. That is just a lot of time wasted that can be taken up by some automation, which then allows you to pull reporting that says, maybe our products are priced too high for the market, or maybe this one particular salesperson is always discounting to get the sale and needs a little bit more training. So we'll go through and say, show us your process and look for those areas that are a little bit bloated that can be solved by technology. And we will put that sort of process into motion. And I know that you are not going to be surprised when I tell you we recommend quick wins. So change management for salespeople is usually challenging because they don't want to sit down and take 8 hours of training to do something. So instituting small changes that they can put into place and then continuing to improve upon their process.
Yeah. And I would bet too that once you start doing that and getting involved with a client, that there ends up being more automations or more things that you are able to uncover to try and make improvements as they go. But to your point too, not large, significant, changes all at one time, because that probably is more. It's probably worse in the salesperson's mind. Is like, you know what? Maybe I wasn't. Maybe the admin stuff wasn't as bad. This person that came in, now I have to sit down in an all day class to learn all these automations.
Yes, and that's the worst, especially if you're looking at a layered environment in terms of how old people are, right? Because we've now got 4 different generations
Yeah.
working in the same workforce. So you've got folks that were born with technology in their hand, maybe YouTube was their babysitter, so they know how to run around technology. And then you've got folks who are, Gen X or who are in the boomer generation who say, okay, I am not used to this sort of thing, and so this is a challenge to the way that I'm used to doing things. And so even that training has to be done with considerations on how people learn and what their own familiarity with technology
How do
is.
you handle that? It is a good point, right? Because we're at a point in the in time where you have multiple generations. You have the boomers, you have Gen X that I'm part of, and the other two that are obviously have grown up with technology. How do you handle that in terms of that spectrum is huge.
One of the things I recommend to everybody is to consider the 3 different learning styles. So you've got auditory learners, visual learners, kinesthetic learners. Salespeople mostly are hands-on. So if you're teaching them how to do something in technology, have them literally do it with you. So you show them how to do it, and then you ask them to try it out. And most of the folks who are listening to this, we would call that user acceptance testing, right? That's exactly what it is. So you're just doing UAT, but that is training for salespeople. So having them really get their hands on it and then testing to make sure that they remember what you're doing and just in time. So not teaching them something that you're not going to roll out for 90 days or they're not going to see for a quarter because they'll never ever remember it.
Yeah. Well, let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk growth. As salespeople, especially, and as an entrepreneurs, we love to talk about growth and growing our businesses. And with growth comes challenges and sometimes pains and peaks and valleys and all sorts of things. And obviously, you started your company 5 years ago, going on 6, I think. And
Six.
and there's probably been those peaks and valleys. What are the challenges that you see right now with growing your own firm? And how are you looking at kind of overcoming some of those?
of the things that I know is really challenging for entrepreneurs is setting your lane and staying in it. So being able to say, this is who I work really well with, and these are the types of sales I want to go after, and not just saying yes to everything that comes your way because it becomes precedent setting. So early on, we had an opportunity to work with a company that was B2B, but they operated on an e-commerce model. So it felt more like B2C. We took it on because we were early stage and it made sense for us to capture any revenue we could, but it took us so much time to get up to speed with what was needed. And it was so much more challenging for us to troubleshoot and check for bugs that we ended up losing tons of opportunity time on that project. And so, when you start out new, it's hard to say this is what I want to stay focused on because you're trying to eat and pay your mortgage, but it's something that I have found has been really helpful once we declared this is who is our ICP, which is ideal client profile. Once we identified that, it made things a lot easier, and it helped our prospects to trust us because they knew that we understood them. And that, I think, for me, has been one of the biggest lessons in the last half of a decade.
I think that's the hardest thing. And as entrepreneurs, we're at heart, most of us are salespeople too, right? And you pointed out when you're starting out, you're just trying to get revenue, put food on the table, so to speak, right? But as you go, then you start looking back and saying, oh, you know what? That probably isn't the best type of client for us to be working, whether it's us or them or a combination thereof. It's kind of like partnerships. Sometimes partnerships aren't the best, fit. And
Mm-hmm.
so as you go, you have a much better perspective in terms of who are the best, fit in terms of clients for you. Who are the ones we get the best results? Who are the ones that we're happiest with? And vice versa. Who are the ones that are most happy with us? And then to be able to have that discipline to say, yep, I'm going to stay in this lane, right? Because here it's a win-win. It's a win for us. It's a win for our clients, which is what all of us want. And I think that's probably the most important thing. And being 5, 6 years in, you're probably at that peak where we all have, right? Look back and be like, here's the mistakes. Here's the ones I should have walked away from, sooner. Yeah. But it's a
Yes.
valuable lesson. And that's why I spend time on this, to talk through it, because I think, all of us are entrepreneurs. And even if we're experienced, we still go through it, right, at times. And it's just so important. I have these conversations with my co-founders who are younger than I am. And I'm like, trust me, this is one that we'll be able to look back in the rearview mirror and glad we, stepped away when we did, right? Because the opportunity cost is what is so valuable in growing a business, at least from my perspective.
So true. You make such a good point. It can feel a little gut wrenching to say no, but one of my clients said to me yesterday that their goal is every client is a referenceable client, and he doesn't just mean, hey, we did a really great job, but they make sense with our client mix. So if I all of a sudden took on a manufacturing company and tried to help them with their sales process and their Salesforce instance, it would look crazy if I put that on my website. People say, "What? How does that fit in?" And if she is helping manufacturers, she has no idea how to help me because we're so wildly different. And I think that's a really good rule.
What are your goals? What in terms of your business and where you're trying to take it? There's a lot of, I think, business and entrepreneurs, we have like different stages, right? So sometimes we'll say, hey, I'm good with the slow growth stage. Sometimes we'll be like, hey, I'm good just keeping it here, right? Almost like lifestyle type. Like I don't want to, as entrepreneurs, we know the peaks and valleys and we know what's involved in both. And then sometimes we're like, hey, you know what? I'm good with growth. Like, let's go. Let's put the gas pedal down and let's see what we can make of this. Where would you put yourself in your firm in terms of, let's call it one of those three stages?
I love that question because I think a lot of people will reduce that to, are you a growth company or are you a lifestyle company? And I think there's something in between, and that is responsibly scaled growth. And that's what we're going after, which is taking on clients that we know we can service with the same amount of love and care as we did in our first 6 months of business. So making sure we aren't growing so fast that we aren't delivering a wonderful product. And that means we've been really careful about sustaining our balance between sales and delivery. So, not selling when we don't have people to deliver. And that for us has been interesting and it's worked fairly well. So, we didn't take on any funding. So we're not saying, oh, we have to 17x our revenue attainment from last year. We're trying to be really responsible about it. But I am also always thinking about how do we service the clients that we have even better? So, what types of things do they need? Do they need additional advisory services around marketing? Or one of the things that we started doing a few years ago was consulting on Jira, which is a platform that a lot of people use to track development or tasks, sort of like a Trello
Okay.
board. And a lot of our clients were also using Jira, and they were using Jira to tell our Jira things they wanted us to do, but they didn't realize how to get the most out of that. So we added that on. So I'm always looking to say what's complementary and makes sense for the client mix and that ideal client profile we've identified so that we can be a really good partner to them and helping them feel like they're being serviced in a really helpful way.
Yeah, I think that's really imperative in terms of developing out an ecosystem. Once, because let's face it, right? We talked about earlier the client acquisition costs, and once you have a client and there's that trusted relationship, right? They're going to have other needs, and rather than go out to an open market to try and find another vendor, to have a trusted advisor, trusted vendor that they already worked with to say, hey, can you help us? Solve this issue together. And it's just,
Yes.
again, I love the win-win stuff, right? Because it's like, okay, great. That means less time that you have to spend going out to find a new client. That means less time they have to spend going out to find a vendor, and you can help solve problems together.
Yes. And I love that. And that's really what we're doing in services business, right? Is we're trying to solve problems together and co-create innovative solutions that hopefully are sustainable.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about some of the trends in tech, and obviously AI just dominates. So let's just make it an AI question, right? Whether it's generative AI or LLMs, large learning models. Tell us about what you're hearing from your prospects, clients. What are the conversations that are taking place? Good, bad? Is the sky falling? Hey, how do we harness it? Where should we start? I really want to delve into this as an interesting topic.
The thing that I'm seeing right now is we are back in that place where we were with technology 10 years ago when there was a point solution for everything. So there's AI for developing a proposal, AI for doing prospecting research, AI for creating PowerPoint presentations. And that was what we saw in both MarTech and sales tech, a decade ago, where there were perfect solutions for everything, which caused our marketing and salespeople to spend a lot of time remembering logins, going to separate places to, change their password. And even if you've got a password manager, it still becomes cognitively challenging for your marketing and salespeople to be operating on platforms that have different UIs and feel different and tell them to do different things, where one word may mean something on one platform and one on another. And so, what I'm predicting we're going to see is some of these AI tools that are now becoming very big are going to be molded into point solutions. So, instead of you just having a tool that will help you fill in your calendar, it will allow you to do multiple other things as well. So, we'll, develop into more of a platform solution or something that works really well with your platform, because some of the tools that I have seen recently that I am really, really pumped about can't integrate with anything. And for most of my customers, if you can't integrate it into our CRM platform, we don't even care if it's the most perfect solution. Bring us something that's 80% there that will integrate.
Yeah. It is fascinating. It kind of reminds me, and you probably went back 10 years ago, and I think you're referring to is right, all the different SaaS type of offerings that came about, right? And I guess some of them are probably software related too, but like for very specific, like pointed solutions, right? And then you had a bunch of, applications, a bunch of pieces of software, and right, that's probably where we are in the adoption cycle with AI.
Yes, I think that's exactly where we are. And so we'll go back through that period of right sizing. And I think that's a continuous thing. We saw it with the beginning of the pandemic in 2020, where everybody hurried up to get home. So they bought a bunch of tech to deal with the issue. And then they had to right size it and go back and think about how that worked as a platform. And so I think we're going to go through another iteration of that too.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be fascinating. Let's talk about what you like to do in your free time. What do you enjoy? I mean, I know I seeing that are an adjunct professor and probably love teaching, just like you have your sales background, right? That's a good part of it. But what do you like to do in your free time?
Well, for fun, I judge dance and cheer competitions.
Wow.
I know every age I'm like, that's it. I'm done. I'm not going to do that anymore. That I said that at 35. I said it at 40. I said it at 45. I'm still judging competitions and it's a ton of fun. I just love the artistry of it and watching, akin to technology, watching the way people are pushing the boundaries of what the human body can do is wonderful. And I am still on a competitive dance team for moms.
Pretty cool.
It's super fun.
How often do you do that?
So last season we practiced once a week and we went to a couple actual competitions. Now, no other mom groups have stepped up to compete against us, so we get adjudicated, but we keep winning first place.
Wow. So you're the only mom group, but you're out there competing and stuff. No kidding. That's even more impressive.
It's super fun and it's great for our kids too to see, hey, we're still doing it, we're still out there performing, and I think they get a big kick out of it. You'd think maybe at this age they would be embarrassed by it, but they love it.
I
It's
agree with
really
you.
cool.
I try and still play sports. I play soccer. My boys play soccer. I play in outdoor leagues. And even though they rib me and give me a hard time when I come home with like bumps and bruises, it's the fact to just kind of show them like, hey man, like you can still do it
Right.
at an advanced age. I'll say for me.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, listen, as we wrap up here, why don't you tell us how people can, learn more about cloud adoption solutions, learn more about you, follow you. I know you're on LinkedIn, but where can they, even start a conversation about even some of the topics that we talked about, regardless of whether it's Salesforce involved, automation involved, AI involved.
Yes, I love LinkedIn. Please add me on LinkedIn. It's shannonj.gregg with two G's at the end. I am constantly looking for things to share and elevate and keep everything moving forward when it comes to the sales profession and the way that we use technology because I love it. And you're right, I do teach it. I teach a class on technology and innovation in sales and marketing, and I am just a fan of looking at the way technology makes everybody's lives a little bit better.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't agree with you more. I love it. I've tried to do a more lately to try and post on LinkedIn, kind of thought leader type of stuff. And before I've kind of thought like, oh, no one wants to hear from me, but it's appreciated. We're all in this together. That's as entrepreneurs, as IT leaders, that's why we do the podcast is really to help get the conversation out there, just all help each other.
I think that's a uniquely Gen X thing where everything was about us not fitting in and keeping to ourselves. And I think that we are now being challenged to share all the things that we know. And it feels to me like we have to. We spend a lot of time learning these things, and it's helpful for us to share it with everybody else. So I'll join you in it, Terrence. Let's get all the things that we know out there to help everybody
I
else.
could not agree with you more. And I've finally come to that realization as Gen X over the last few years. And so we will continue to do this. So thank you very much, Shannon, for coming on today. And we'll look forward to sharing this on LinkedIn and elsewhere. So, but thank you for your time.
I love it. Thanks for having me.